In the spring of 1791, Thomas Beddoes, a recently qualified medical doctor, was working as a chemistry lecturer at the University of Oxford. In his lectures, he described the discoveries of the famous pneumatic chemists Lavoisier, Cavendish, Priestley, and Scheele. And of Scheele he was a particular expert, having published a translated version of his Swedish works in 1786. And this was shortly after he had been studying medicine at the University of Edinburgh. At a time when Joseph Black, the chemist, and his friend James Hutton, the geologist, were at the height of their fame. Thus, Beddoes' wide-ranging interests included geology, and he spent the summer of 1791 studying the geology of Cornwall with a former student named Davis Giddy. 1791, however, was the year of the Birmingham riots, and the following year, perhaps partly to show support for Priestley, primary target of the rioters, he published a pamphlet showing support for the French Revolution. This made his position at Oxford untenable, so, still in 1792, he resigned. Instead, he focused on his career in medicine, and the next writing that he published was a medical short story, The History of Isaac Jenkins, which sold well and allowed him to increase his fame and his client base. He also spent time wondering whether the new gases discovered by the pneumatic chemists could benefit sufferers of tuberculosis, a debilitating disease for which fresh air was the best known therapy. He discussed his ideas with two members of the Birmingham Lunar Society, Erasmus Darwin, the physician, and James Watt, the engineer, with whom he produced a 1794 text on the preparation of synthetic gases for medicinal uses. Erasmus Darwin, as a well-known and successful physician, perhaps acted as a role model for Beddoes, and it was Darwin that suggested Hotwells on the outskirts of Bristol as a suitable place for establishing an institute. Thus, Beddoes established the Pneumatic Institution in spring 1799, after receiving investment from Georgiana Cavendish, the aristocrat and socialite, and Thomas Wedgwood, son of the potter Josiah. Bristol also had the advantage that its residents included Richard Edgeworth, another member of the Lunar Society, and his daughter Anna, who would later become Beddoes' wife. However, before that, he needed an inspector at the Institute, and he decided on a young and ambitious chemist from Cornwall, Humphry Davy. Davy had a modest upbringing, and was working as an apprentice to an apothecary. However, he had learnt chemistry from a copy of Lavoisier's Traité élémentaire de chimie, and had made contact with several of Beddoes' acquaintances, including Tom Wedgwood and Davis Giddy. When he began working at the Institute, it became obvious he was a keen and conscientious worker, and he tried inhaling several of the gases himself before subjecting them to patients. He would later include a dramatic description of the inhalation of nitrous oxide, now known as laughing gas, in his 1800 book, Researches Chemical and Philosophical. But what was more dramatic than his reports of stamping and dancing from the effects of nitrous oxide were his reports on the inhalation of hydrocarbonate gas, a mixture of hydrogen and carbon monoxide which almost killed him. These reports brought him to the attention of many, including Count Rumford, founder of the Royal Institution, where Davy would be offered a job. Thus, Davy began work at the RI, where, in some lectures, the effects of nitrous oxide were demonstrated, which resulted in him being ridiculed in satirical cartoons, such as this James Gilroy one, where Davy is seen holding bellows. Despite this, of course, Davy would continue his dramatic career rise, and his work over the subsequent decade, characterizing three groups of elements, would be of fundamental importance to chemistry. Despite the promising results with nitrous oxide, it became obvious that there wasn't going to be a miracle cure for tuberculosis. So, Beddoes began to concentrate more on preventive medicine, changed the name of the institute to the Medical Institution for the benefit of the sick and drooping poor. Thus, he remained an influential and famous doctor, but he died at the relatively young age of 48 due to a heart defect on Christmas Eve, 1808. Thank you for listening to the very end, and I hope to see you again sometime soon.